And today was meant to be by INEC original timetable, today was meant to be the governorship election across 28 states. But things have changed. I told you last week that we wouldn't be here for political standpoint, but we are back here because that election has now been postponed to next Saturday, 18th of March. Hello and thanks for joining us. This is Standpoint. I am Precious Amayo. Now, the presidential election held on the 25th of February, and 2 weeks ago, one would have thought that by now we would have moved on from that election and focused on the gubernatorial election, but issues and matters are still arising from that particular election, so much so that it is now affecting the gubernatorial election. Just some days ago, the Courts of Appeal gave some political parties the order to inspect INEC materials used for the presidential election. INEC also then went back to that same court asking the court to vary that particular ruling. The court did not, but it did also give INEC the go-ahead to reconfigure the beavers for the governorship election. By the time that ruling was done on Thursday, INEC said, look, we cannot hold the governorship election today, and that it will have to postpone by at least a week, which INEC has now done. Now, what is the implication of that ruling? What is the expectation for the governorship election? There is also another ruling that people can use that two people actually can use their temporary voters cards to participate in the governorship election. There are battleground states like Lagos, Delta, Kano, Abia, Enugu. These are some of the battleground states, and these are issues we're going to be looking at today. To help us have this conversation, we are joined in the studio by a lawyer, of course, Ola-Daniels. He's good to have you join us. We are also joined by another lawyer who is to be the second vice president of the Nigerian Bar Association, Ubani. He joins us via Zoom. Good to have you join us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Good afternoon.
And so we're expecting another analyst. If he does join, also via Zoom, we will bring him to the conversation. But let me start in the studio. There were times where, before this conduct of last year, before the conduct of the election, a lot of people were asking for the postponement of election. INEC had said, no, we are going to go ahead. Even with the cash crunch and then, the Naira scarcity, the fuel scarcity, people thought that would be the deal breaker for INEC to postpone the election. INEC said no, but now INEC has now postponed just one of the election. Did this come to you as a surprise?
Well, to me, it did not. I would have said, maybe it comes as a surprise if all that has happened had not happened. And INEC had no justification to postpone the election. But it is glaring. We all know. And it's simple, because if you had planned and you have 2 weeks after the presidential election to have the governorship election, and you're actually working towards that, but at some point, because all the materials they use, some of the materials are still going to be used. The beavers, the BVS, and some other materials that INEC used during the presidential election, they're still going to use. Now, some political parties went to court, and they had said that we need to have some certain materials from this election. Of course, to provide such. And INEC is saying it's not a problem to have it, but we also need to reconfigure our BVAs or some other materials, considering what happened during the presidential election. We want to have a better election and the governorship election. So to do that, they need time. And INEC has said, it will take us 5 days to reconfigure. So now, if you take those days out, and at the time the judgment came, there is no how INEC will be able to conduct very fantastic election as of today. So the implication of that is either you go ahead, you conduct the election, and it boomerang, or is worse than what we had on the 25th. Or you you sacrifice that 1 week and you put your house in order. And for me, to an extent, I would not say that INEC didn't see this coming. So all that should have even been in the plan. while they were fixing their dates.
Exactly, because I was going to just ask, because you said that it was justified, and I was going to say, look, shouldn't INEC have made contingency plans? When you look at some of the issues arising from a Oshu election, that it was also a Beavers issue, that shouldn't INEC have made such plans, knowing that, look, people have always gone to court for whatever election, even up to, local government elections, we see people going to court, primaries, people go to court. So INEC should have known that these kind of issues will arise and probably make contingency plans. So is it really justified? Shouldn't they have made plans?
No, where justification comes in, from my end, where justification comes in was when the date, the ruling was given, and the time frame needed for the configuration of the materials. So that is why I'm talking about justification, because there's no how they can do that without, they can go ahead without configuring the material, so that we don't come back to have serious legal battle, which we have won already, existing already. So we don't want to go into this governorship election and still have the same issue.
I'm going to come to legal battles, because I think that there are lots. We're already seeing legal battles from the presidential, even from primaries. We're seeing legal battles. But let me bring in Mr. Monday Ubani, who is also a lawyer. Does it speak to the legal system itself, and how it is now, part of our elections? Or does it speak to this particular postponement, does it speak to the issue of INEC's preparation?
Yeah, thank you for having me once again. I want to say that many Nigerians are clearly disappointed with the glaring incapacity and incompetence, that is being shown or displayed by INEC in handling the 2023 general election. Remember that INEC made so many promises, even in as far as going to England in Chatham House, where they really told the entire world their state of preparedness, that they are very, very prepared for the election of 2023. This election the planning supposed to have started from 2019, after the last election. So it took them 4 years. And this is an election in which everything that INEC demanded in terms of funding was made available. And so INEC has no reason whatsoever to have failed in every parameter. If you look at the election of 2023, INEC issued a guideline, and the guideline and the promises that they made on it was that, look, we will transmit all our results electronically from the polling unit. That they failed to do. INEC was aware that immediately the election of the presidency and that of the National Assembly was concluded, that there may be litigation and people will ask for forensic audit of whatever they have in their system. And INEC should have made adequate arrangement to ensure that that is done, knowing fully well that there will be another election of the governorship that is coming. So this issue of using the governorship election to now blackmail the court, when the court made an order for the political parties to have access to the information at their IRF, to me was pure blackmail. Now, the court has given them that particular order by saying, oh, you have a right to probably reconfigure. Or you must also allow the people to have access to the information in the IRF. I'm sorry about this.
It's fine. Go ahead. We can hear you.
Are you hearing me?
Yes, we can hear you. Just go ahead.
Yes, you will have access to the IRF. Now, for INEC now to suddenly now say, oh, we are going to postpone the election, and which they have done, shows that they were not prepared for this election. And I just hope that INEC will be able to fulfill the basic promises they made to Nigerians when they wanted to conduct this election, that they will ensure that everything is done in just a smooth manner.
But Mr. Ubani, if I may jump in, apologies, but what could INEC have done differently? Because left to INEC, just a minute, Mr. Ubani, left to INEC, I'm sure it would have really loved to go on and just conduct the governorship election. But if you look at every litigation surrounding election, INEC is always a respondent most times. And so when you so far, we have to also commend INEC for its ability to, at least it's one of the few agencies that we know that always abides by the ruling of the court. And so when INEC is a part of any form of electoral litigation, that also impacts on the process. So in this particular case, can we say that, look, INEC should have gone on and held the election. And if we say that INEC should have made contingency plans, it's almost as good as saying have a backup of, of beavers that can go around the 176,000 polling units all over again.
No, what I'm trying to say is that before we started this election, INEC was aware that there would be a general election in which the presidency and that of the National Assembly will take place first. Do I agree on that? INEC was also, they know that immediately after that election that there may be litigation and the issue of having access to whatever information they have in their decision will become an issue. And so they would have also taken into cognizance that fact and possibly fix their timetable to fit into that particular fact I've just mentioned. That after the election, people will have access to the IREF in order to collect whatever data is there. So the INEC shouldn't have said, oh, election is going to hold on so date, on 11th. It would have planned it that the election itself from beginning will be on 18th. So pending the time the application for access is made and clearing all that, and then having reconfiguration, whatever they want to do with the data therein, done. They should have taken that into consideration. Not that when you have already fixed the election, that you're going to hold the election on 11th after the presidential, and you know that these things are going to take place. Only suddenly you now wake up and say, oh, we didn't take this into consideration. It took 4 years for this planning. So I am not saying that maybe they should have gone ahead to go and hold the election if it becomes impossible. I'm saying that they should have, from beginning, master this particular fact, master this particular circumstance that will arise, and say, gentlemen, we may not be able to hold the election on 11th from beginning. We're going to make it up to 18th of March so that the people who may go to court will have access to our data and collect whatever they want to collect so that we can now go ahead and reconfigure the system. That is what I'm trying to say. It is this lack of a proper planning that will now make you now some people are spending, some people are home in order to probably participate in this election. Suddenly you have made them now to spend. Many people will go back home and they will not come back again to come and cast their participate in the electoral process because of the additional cost. There is no money in town. People are, finding it difficult to have access to cash. And so you have put additional burden on them. There are people who have planned marriages, on 18th. You are now suddenly, distort and destroy their plans and all that. So that lack of proper planning is what I'm complaining about. I'm not saying that it should have gone ahead and then mess up the system the more. No, the proper planning that didn't take, that was not taken into consideration is what is actually causing what is happening now. And INEC should not in any way be exonerated. We should not clap for them. We should rather make them know that they owe us some level of responsibility and accountability in whatever they are doing.
So because we're talking about, because one of the major issue of contention here, the bone of contention here is technology that we have not introduced into our electoral system. And I was reading a response by I think it's the president of the National Computer Society of Nigeria or something. I think that's what they're called. And he was talking about how INEC has almost like over promising but under delivering because and I just want to take that comment so I can be accurate. He said they have a distributed platform and it is not too robust. He was talking about the INEC platform. And he says, and I'm quoting, and I thought that all these, they should have been able to evaluate. They should have been able to subject the system to a kind of test. And that is why we wanted to be involved. He's saying that, look, that same technology INEC was promising is not too robust. And he also added that from his experience during the election, some of the polling officers were complaining of the system, not allowing them to have access to that platform to be able to transmit, their results. Do you think that, in preparing for this election, that we really understood the implication of technology?
Well, if we look at it critically, what we had in 2000 let's even go back all the way from 1999 all the way 2003, 2007, 2015, we have seen progress from INEC. Now, I am not patting INEC on the head. Well, I'll give them 70%. But now, coming to technology, if you look at what happened on the 25th at the collation center, when they were collating the result, and INEC started releasing the result, we also, the issues that came up, there were hiccups. Look, when it comes to technology, anything can happen. You, even the man talking, you may have done your own work well. There are sometimes you put everything in place, everything is perfect, and you want to start the program, action, and something happened, and the system you have checked, you are evaluated, that is working perfectly. At that point, something happened, and the system crashed. What do? You must have plan B. And that was what happened during the coalition. And that was what INEC was saying. Look, yes, we promised we will do this. But we had issues. So because we promised we're going to do it this way, and now issue came up, are we saying everything should
But even before that election, even before the election, INEC had said that, look, they had detected foreign hackers who were trying to hack into their system, into their system. And so shouldn't INEC have known that, look, if hackers were already trying to get into the system, and they were not, they were even most of the time foreign hackers, shouldn't have shown INEC that, look, probably the system might not be reliable. Maybe we should communicate and say we're not going to use the system if we're already having issues of hackers.
Precious, human being shut down. You must have worked hard, done everything to stop hackers. Didn't United States of America, the Almighty, accuse Russia of interfering in their election on the hacking part of it? So what are we talking about? You may have worked, you may have seen it, you may have done everything, spent all you have on it to make sure that this will not happen. You've guided against everything. And at that moment, so anything can happen. Human being is not beyond any mistake, it's not beyond any error. So now talk of technology. You can put everything in place and still come back to, oh, after all I have done, this is what I'm getting. So I don't want us to just see INEC to like, come. Yes, with all the noise, with everything, we gave you all you asked for. And what have you delivered? Zero. I'm not going to see it from that angle, that they have delivered zero. No. I want to, because I also manage things, and I know after we have done so much, sometimes I know what happens. And when it happens, so everybody calm down. Let's find alternative way to fix it. We have done our best, and this is what happened. So sometimes, yes, I agree. You had ample time, because what will happen now after this election, what you will see, INEC will still go back and sleep. And they do that a lot. If we're talking about technology, this is just one aspect of election year that we're talking about. There are other aspects of it that you find out that they may sleep. Look at the voters card, look at the voters' electoral education we are talking about and all that. So sometimes, at this time, in 2023, this particular election, I was an observer. I was out there, and I saw how the INEC officials, the people that are supposed to be stamping the ballot papers given to you to fill and do, they will still have to stand up, follow you to where you're going to thumbprint, because with all the explanation, number of people don't still know how to do that. They'll even tell you, okay, put this in this box, put that. They were doing that. So to say that, yes, INEC might not have done wonderfully well, maybe not 100%. That's the reason why I say I will give them 70%. But I'm not going to say they have not done anything at all.
Let me put you on hold. I understand that we now have, please, I hope I get your surname correctly. We have Gbenga Olorunpomi. I hope I got that correctly. He's an analyst. He's joining us also via Zoom. Good to have you join us. I'm sure that you've been following the conversation. If you've been listening to us, we've been talking about the postponement of the election, and if an INEC is justified to have postponed this particular election, and matters arising as well. I want you to comment on the postponement.
All right, thank you very much. So I think some of the issues are, from some of the commentators have been a bit muddled up. What INEC wanted to stop wasn't, or what INEC went to court to request for was that the devices be allowed to be used for the gubernatorial and state assembly election. They had no problems with the data from those machines being used. And thankfully, the judges agreed with INEC that those machines be reconfigured. But INEC had always said that they needed 4 clear days for these machines to be fully reconfigured and to be available to be used for the next election. The judgment, I think, came in on Wednesday, so they didn't have those 4 clear days. So if anybody is now blaming INEC for postponing the election, I think the person is being either misinformed or being disingenuous. Because what it is that INEC had always said that they needed 4 days, 4 clear days. And while I'm not, an INEC staff or speaking for INEC, I think it behoves on us to be understanding of the issues. We want to say that the last elections were not, some people want to say the last elections were not credible. But this is an election where 4 sitting governors lost their bid to go to the Senate. This is the election where even the national chairman of the APC lost his polling unit. This is an election where the president lost his state to the opposition. The winner of the election lost his state to the opposition. How more fair can this be? And it's funny that those that are saying the presidential election is flawed and blaming INEC are actually celebrating their National Assembly members that won elections. So what is it? What exactly are we debating here? So
but if I may quickly comment, you understand that one of the things that people are saying is that, look, INEC promised that the results were going to be displayed in real time on the IRF, and that did not happen. And perhaps that has eroded the trust they had in INEC, because that was the INEC kept promising. INEC actually did make that promise. And perhaps that if anything was going to go wrong, INEC should have also communicated, and there were also issues of communication from INEC. You don't think that that's also justifiable for people to say, you made this promise and you did not deliver?
Yes, I monitored the election from the comfort of my couch. And at every point when INEC was asked, the INEC chairman was asked that why is this not being uploaded, he explained that it would be done. The reasons are technical. And this is what I want Nigerians to understand. The fact that INEC said they were going to upload the elections online, it is not, and they didn't do it, it's not that they broke the law. It is that a guideline that they gave, they couldn't meet up with it for reasons that have to do with technology. And this is the question I ask people. If you go on the IRF website right now and you compare the results that was recorded at the polling unit to what was uploaded, is there any discrepancy? Or if there are discrepancies, are they enough to upset the final collation? I don't think so. So why are we so insistent on destroying? Okay, so out of 10 marks, take that one away, and you are left with 9. I would give INEC a 9/10 in this election because they met all the guidelines except that one of uploading the results live. And as I speak to you, the results have been completely uploaded. So what are the issues? That's the question I have for those that have problems with INEC.
Let me bring in Mr. Ubani back into the conversation. You listen to Mr. Gbenga speaking there, talking about the fact that, look, INEC has been scored 9/10. But this particular election was really about, one of the biggest issues people have is that we have now introduced technology into our election, and perhaps it is, we probably did not understand, or INEC probably did not understand the gravity or what it requires in terms of bringing in technology at that level and at that scale, and perhaps that's why we're having issues. I want you to respond to that.
Yeah, what is wrong with us as a nation is we celebrate mediocrity. And that's why the nation is actually very retarded. And those who are supposed to hold our institutions accountable and ensure that proper thing is done for us as a nation, knowing fully well our history with other nations, sometimes want to justify, these things, and make them look at is a fundamental objective of state policy for us to remain underdeveloped and not make some level of progress in whatever we do. Now, INEC started by even the ordinary registration of the voters and ensuring that they have their PVCs. As I speak to you, so many persons did not participate in this year's election because INEC never gave them their PVCs. Rather, we are seeing that PVCs now are being found in the bush. I'm sure you are aware of the one now, viral video, of one that was found in Lagos either yesterday or today. I saw it this morning when I woke up. There was one that was also dumped in the bush somewhere in the southeast. I'm talking about PVCs. Thousands of them were dumped that INEC is in charge of that. INEC is supposed to be in charge of the custody of PVCs. And that these PVCs were supposed to be given to people who have registered. Rather, we saw them in bushes where they were thrown away. That alone makes INEC to be very incompetent and complacent and have failed even in that regard.
Ubani, can we blame
INEC? Let me finish.
Sorry, let me finish. I don't want to lose the line of thought you just made. Apologies. But do we blame INEC for that? Because we also know that most times INEC facilities were also attacked. And so can we categorically say, look, it's INEC that is responsible for those cards that have not been found at different locations?
I never heard anywhere INEC said their PVCs were taken by anyone that attacked them. And I don't think there was any attack in Lagos where INEC office was attacked somewhere in Southwest. I'm talking about INEC never complained publicly that, oh, gentlemen and ladies, we have lost several PVCs as a result of any attack on our facility. We never got that report. But we are seeing it. That is with regards to registration. Then the second issue was the issue of even giving them their PVCs. Many people, as I speak to you, did not receive their PVC. We got to a stage where somebody has to go to court recently and say, look, the court should allow us to even participate in the next election with our temporary voters card because they couldn't collect their PVCs after INEC make other promise. And I said, what stopped INEC from even following what the banking system are doing? The bank now, if you want to get your ATM, you just go to the bank under few seconds. They will print your ATM. Why can't we even use this method, get all the information, and get people to take their PVC immediately? If they don't want to rely on the PVC, can't we use any other mode, other our driver's license, and participate in the electoral process? You gave us a figure of how many millions of Nigerians that got registered. Now the election took place and where there was so much enthusiasm. And we're seeing fewer people that participated in the electoral process, thereby really querying those figures that INEC was brandishing, that these are the number of registered voters. If you have 90-something million, and after election, less than 25% participate, there is something fundamentally flawed in that electoral system. Now, that is one. The day of election, in many polling units, the issue of logistics has always been an issue. From 1999 to today, you will get INEC coming to a polling unit by 11 o'clock, some by 12. And we ask ourselves, what is the issue? If the issue of transportation and other, is there no way we can, as a nation, correct that, that system, whereby we must make sure that INEC reports in every polling unit on time? If it is, at least, even if it's going to be 1 hour delay. But sometimes you see INEC coming to, or you don't even see them anymore, at all. In some instances, they come with insufficient electoral materials. In some instances, there is not even an election that will take place because INEC staff will not be there. It has happened even in this particular election. That is aspect, because it is a process. It is not only issue of counting votes and uploading. It's a process. Now, on that day of election, many places, it was reported that INEC officials came late. What is the issue? Logistics. Then, in the process of finishing the election, you now counted, you now recorded, upload. Somebody came to me because I participated and told me that what they gave to him is a wrong password. I said, what do you mean? Why would they give you a wrong password? Why will INEC deliberately, after they have made promises that this is going to be...
Mr. Ubani, I have to put you on hold. Online. Allow me put you on hold, just so we can take a break, and then we'll also get other people's response to some of the things you just said. So we'll take a break now. When we return, we'll continue with the conversation on matters arising ahead the governorship election or state elections next Saturday. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. You're still watching Standpoint. And just before that break, we're looking at matters arising from the postponement of the state election, which was meant to hold today, 11th of March, and has now been postponed to next Saturday, 18th of March. And that's because of litigation arising from the presidential election. We still have with us a lawyer and a former second vice president of the NBA, Ubani. He joins us via Zoom. We have analyst Gbenga Olorunpomi, who is also joining us via Zoom, as well as another lawyer who is joining us in the studio, Ola-Daniels. Thank you all for staying with us. Just before that break, Mr. Ubani was speaking as to the conduct of the presidential election and all of these issues arising, and he doesn't seem to be pleased with INEC. But let me get your thoughts on some of the issues Mr. Ubani raised.
Yeah, well, like I said, I'll give them 70. They've not done badly, except for the hiccups there. But the part I also have issues.
Gbenga said 9 over 10, which is 90%. Is that too high?
Even 70, 70. Given the 70,
high for INEC?
Any 70 is A. 70 still falls in A. He has done 90 by 10. I am doing 70. Any score, when you have 70 in any grades,
I get
that is
but,
still
but
A. So more like
there is
I'm still giving that,
and
yeah.
A minus and B plus and B minus. But I just I'm asking you because look, people who really feel like INEC has not done well in these elections also have their reasons for saying that.
Yeah.
But can we say that, look, INEC, it was really actually 90 over 100 or 9 over 10?
I can say 9 over 10 because I expected more. That's the reason why I'm not putting them. I expected more. And also, I will not say that they have not done well. That's the reason why I'm doing 70. For instance, you had moved election from 11 to 18. Number of people fixed their engagement for 18th of March, knowing fully well that your calendar says election will be 11th. There are marriages that are cancelled today. There are events, people traveled to cast their vote today. And by the time they look at the time this announcement came, but people were already in, President Buhari had already gone to Daura. In fact, there are a number of states, Kaduna and some other states, maybe a few states, they had moved sensitive materials to different places. And then you came up with this announcement. So no, so what happened to those sensitive materials? And we want a perfect election, or maybe, well, if it's maybe not perfect, but at least we want something reasonable, something that we can, at least we can say, yes, we give you 80% of election, there's no election that is perfect anywhere in the world. But when we say want to give you 80%, then things like this we need to, economically, politically, every other way. This 1 week is a lot to so many people. A lot has happened. Even the wonderful INEC, we just told you how, some states had moved sensitive materials. They're still going to move maybe some people. I'm sure even the media crew, some media crew would have moved to different states to capture. And also, all this thing would have affected a lot of people. So reason why you had to, step up your game. You had 4 years, like Mr. Ubani said. I agree. I totally agree. But my own point is, you must have done everything. You must have worked wonderfully well. Put all resources in place to get your, project or your job delivered. And anything, that line is very key. It can happen anywhere. It can happen to anybody. And that is the reason why I'm not going to act INEC and say they have not done well. But what I'm saying is they can do better than what they are giving us today. They had ample time. Yes, they've been progressing. Now we have beavers. Tomorrow I want a better, a seamless election, maybe by 2027, as in something better for us. So now if you have that in mind, all these hiccups that we've been having, the number of things that have been repeated that we had in the past elections.
That we continue to have even today, like
issues
around logistics.
So work harder.
One wonders why logistics is still a
so
problem.
that, we can have a better election.
Gbenga. With what we're seeing today, do you expect last turnout on Saturday? Could this lead to voter apathy?
So, with what transpired in last election, in the presidential election, I don't think that anything above 32% turnout will be an anomaly, because the turnout in the presidential is a good indicator of what will happen at the state election. For the issues that came up, I'm sure, and one thing I love about INEC is that they learn as they move along. Every election has improved, has been an improvement on the last one. And I hope that, but again, I think some of the criticisms they have been suffering has been harsh. It wasn't INEC that said Naira should not be available. It wasn't INEC that took the National Road Transport Workers in Lagos to court, that they shouldn't provide service to INEC because it was Labour Party that did that. It wasn't INEC that took itself to court and delayed made it such that a pronouncement of the court had to be what would have allowed INEC to reconfigure the machines. So INEC has been dealing with the hand they've been dealt, and they've been dealing with it as well as I believe they can. If we're going to criticize, I think we should always put it in context. People are asking for perfect elections. In America, enjoyed democracy for 200 years. The last election they held, the last presidential election they held was riddled with a lot of issues. Some counties that used to have 10 voting points reduced to 2. And as we speak, there are over 150 amendments nationwide to elections, to modify our elections hold in America. So, trying to, bring out your anger because your candidate lost and put it on INEC, I think it's not fair. But again, they learn as they go. Do I expect the next election to be better organized than the last one? Absolutely. Because INEC, they always learn as they move along.
All right, so a lot of lessons to learn, but I want to move away from INEC and now focus on the gubernatorial election. Let me bring in Mr. Ubani. We saw, and everyone continues to speak to that. I think Gbenga also mentioned it earlier, a shift in the electoral map during the presidential election. What do you expect the voting pattern to look like for the gubernatorial election? Are we likely to see a repeat of what happened during the presidential election? Or you think that the dynamics will be totally different? Because people say that, look, governorship elections are usually very local.
Yeah, you are very correct. It's very local. There are some states, obviously, that will be yearning for a change of the kind of leadership that have been in power for many years. And that's like my state, Abia, one political party has held the state hostage for over 20-something years, and there is no reciprocal improvement in terms of other human or infrastructural development. So people are yearning for change in that state. I also know some few states, that may likely also probably change the kind of leadership that have occupied their various states over time and all that. So it's really local. The dynamics may be a bit quite, different. But let me also say, with the national National Assembly election, I understand that INEC transmitted the result of that online, real life. And that was why when my friend was mentioning some of the governors who lost their position and all that, those ones, there were no issues because it was done, INEC complied with their own even electoral guideline. But when it comes to issue of presidency, I don't know whether it was in that particular place that most of them lost their password and all that. But at the end of the day, INEC is expected to improve in this general election, the one that is coming up on the 18th. And the chairman himself has made some promises. Look, that there's going to be an improvement, especially in transmitting the result electronically from the polling unit. It's very, very important that that is done because we don't need a situation where you begin to pursue people. And we're now going back to 2011 election that took place under 2010 Electoral Act, where everything was done manual. Remember that it took almost 3 days for the presidential result to be declared. Whereas in Osun, I think a night or less than 24 hours, everyone knew who was the governor of Osun State and others. So that's the kind of improvement we want, which the Electoral Act has reflected in 2022 Act. And we wanted INEC also to catch up, with the level of improvement we have done with our Act, with now physical application of the law, but it fell short. But we believe that with the next elections and all that, there will be, a very smart move on the part of INEC to correct some of the anomalies that took place in the previous election. And that is the truth.
Let me bring conversation back to you, Mr. Olayinka. We saw, I think it was Gbenga who mentioned earlier that, look, APC for the first time narrowly lost Lagos. We saw Kaduna also being taken by, I think that was the PDP. The president also lost his state. And it's not just within the APC alone. We also saw PDP also losing some states as well. We saw a shift. Is that likely also going to play out, especially in states like Lagos? Delta is a really strong battleground today because the introduction of the Deputy Senate President into the race, people say, look, that has also changed things. The incumbent governor is not running. He now has a successor, someone who he believes is a successor rather. In some states like the Rivers, people believe it's also a battleground state. There is Adamawa also being a battleground state, and that's a state where you're seeing a woman for the first time being running for governorship position. How do you expect? Yes, absolutely, a couple of them. How do you expect things to actually play out?
Well, I'm sure we all agree that politics is local. Yeah. So what we need to take note of during the presidential election, there was a movement, there was an agitation, and there's some group of people wanted a particular candidate. And all over. We could see that in display. Now, we are back to local. Now, there are candidates that would, one, they will first check, what have you delivered? Do you deserve to be a governor? Now, that movement now, don't forget, it was about the presidency. To an extent, maybe in few states, it may still work, but in most of the other states that we saw the shift, I do not see that happening. What I see happening now, everybody comes back, and even those people that voted for a particular candidate.
In a place like Lagos, you see that happening because people feel like, look, there are two sides of the coin. People are saying, for example, that movement you're talking about was actually about the presidency. Yes. People came together and said, we want to so person. And so it might not trickle down to the state elections. Others are saying, look, they might also, some people might also, ride on that and use that to also win the election. Do you think that at this point people are like, look, we have done the part that we want to do. We don't care for these other parts?
Well, it may not be the election as usual we used to see in Lagos that we know where it will go. Maybe a little bit of, pinch of change here and there. And people will say, oh, it's not as usual, so you need to work. Now, how do I come to this? Before this presidential election, before Lagos was taken over, the candidate of a particular party was really known in Lagos. But immediately that movement happened, immediately they saw that, wow, so we can win Lagos. Then that particular candidate capitalized on that. Then it went around, started campaigning, and those other people, some people were still joining. But now we need to understand that some people did not come out to vote in Lagos during the presidential election. There were also issues among some political parties, factions. They were angry in that same election. Now, all that we put in place, all those political parties will have to put their house in order because they are seeing what happened. And by that time, those people that did not vote during the presidential election will surely come out. And some of this wonderful group that we are talking about, because I was an observer, and the truth is, I was out there, and I can tell you that you could still count number of youths that came out to vote. Maybe the few ones that they were showing on social media, they were making noise everywhere, but I can tell you that number of them were playing balls on the road. I'll even go, why are you not voting? Please, we don't have time for all those where they know who is going to win. These are still the people we are talking about. So now, coming back to that, number of them will not still vote. A number of them will still vote for different parties because now this is not that candidate they are looking at. And number of them also, with the anger of the movement, the answer, whatever, they still want to insist on that. We don't want to know whether this person is capable or not. So you can't rule it out. You will have that. But I can tell you that is local. All parties will come back to the drawing board and they will do their work, and we're going to get more votes. Write it. You will see the result of Lagos. I don't see any shift in Lagos as to governorship. I do not see it. Yeah, it may be tight, may not be the usual way of getting results in Lagos, because now, in the days of writing results is over. We have beavers now. So you don't just go to some baba something or some woman somewhere and write out.
You think that the APC will be able to retain Lagos?
Well, I can say that with all sense of responsibility, I can give them 70. They will retain Lagos. APC will retain Lagos.
All right. So I would take I would hold you by that word.
We will come back.
We'll definitely come back and do this analysis.
I've never failed. Anyone I say I've never failed.
Okay, don't worry, I'll just get your result from every state.
All right.
Let me bring in Gbenga. How do you also see this panning out? Because we're seeing a lot of alliances in different states. In Nasarawa, we understand that the Labour Party is now aligning with the PDP. I think that also happened in Rivers as well, where Labour Party is aligning with PDP, Osun, and then we're seeing some states, Labour Party, and majorly is Labour Party aligning with some other parties. Labour Party is also aligning with some, some APC states. How do you expect these alignments? What do you think would come out of these alignments? Let me also bring in Kano, where it looks more like it's a battle and contention between two big wigs, and not even necessarily their candidates, because their candidates look like they've been lost in this election, we talk about Kwankwaso and then we talk about Ganduje, who is the current governor. How do you expect some of these alliances and some of these big wigs in this particular state, issues around that to play out?
So I've always believed that Nigerians pay too much attention to the presidential and National Assembly elections than they do to the gubernatorial and the state elections. That's always been my belief. But I think this time around, with what happened with the presidential election, we might, for the first time, get a lot of upsets in certain unexpected places. I'm happy that one of the fellow commentators on this program has said that he wishes that Abia State gets a new governor from another party. I hope that happens. In Adamawa, I hope that Nigerians and especially Northerners show the world that they are not as backward as they think they are, and vote in the first female governor who's of the APC extraction. I hope that in Rivers, that despite what happened during the general election, that the APC candidate there does his best to upturn that election and win. And also, I look forward to the situation where a state like Ogun State reward the good work that the governor is doing. And down to Lagos, it's clear that the best performing governor, at least of this particular era, is the current governor of the state. And he has done enough, more than enough, to deserve a second term, from infrastructure to housing to, even health insurance here in Lagos. He's done exceedingly well. And I know for a fact, the other man said 75. I'm insistent that I have 98%. I'm 98% convinced that he's going to return. And and that's down also to the fact that even the Labour Party here in Lagos, with whatever momentum they have two candidates. There are two people claiming to be the gubernatorial candidate of the Labour Party in Lagos, while the PDP is really nowhere to be found at this time. So I'm 100% confident that Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu will be returned in Lagos. Yes, this particular election will be a demonstration of true support, because Beavers is there to ensure that people there's less likelihood of rigging, and even when rigging takes place, it will be found out and those polling units will be cancelled. So yes, I look forward to an election that is fully bought into by the people, and the results will be accepted because it is the people's mandate.
Let me bring Mr. Ubani. Mr. Ubani, what sort of shift do you expect? Because you were saying earlier about Abia State you're hoping for a change in government and governance in that state. What sort of change do you expect at some of these battleground states? There's Rivers, there is Lagos, there is Delta, there is Abia, there is Adamawa. What do you expect?
Yeah, it's the dynamics that will determine the outcome. As you rightly pointed out, there are some states where some people are collapsing their structures into other political parties. Of course, when there is combined effort by two major political parties in the state, they can cause an upset. And so I will expect some major changes. Now that we are in democracy, my own appeal is that people's will must prevail, must be allowed to prevail. There shouldn't be any violence. There shouldn't be any disruption of the electoral process, because it is majority that will have their way, while the minority will have a say. And so if the majority say this is the person that will rule us, it makes, what it helps is that it helps governance, because the person that is being elected by the majority will actually owe responsibility to those who have elected him and be very conscious of doing certain things to please them, because he knows in the next 4 years that he will come back for them to actually be re-elected. So issue of allowing the people's way to prevail is what I'm asking everyone to do. That political enlightenment, either in Abia, either in Enugu, either in Lagos, let the people's will prevail. And then I'm very happy with Beavers. As my brother in the listener said, the Beavers now has stopped this issue of flamboyant and fictitious figures that we hear from certain states. Now, beavers will spot those things out. If you go and thumbprint in your reading room and all that, it is not going to be possible. So what we also pray for is having enlightened agents who will insist on things being done properly. One, any result that is announced must be recorded. Every political agent must sign and collect a copy of the result sheet, and then try as much as possible to snap it, when being held by the electoral officer. Snap it and keep it. And so that if a different result from your polling unit is declared, then you arm your lawyers with chances of success in court and others. So this is enlightening, period, and power is returning back to the people. What I know is that Nigeria will not remain the same with the improvement we have had in the electoral process, and the power is now returning to the people. We are now going to have a responsible government where a son of nobody can become whatever he wants to be, because there will be responsible governance all over the country because of the issue of people determining those who govern them. Very critical. When people are elected by majority, they owe you responsibility. But when they force themselves through rigging in order to come to power, they owe you no responsibility. That's why they do anything with impunity. But now we're seeing most of them now running helter-skelter in order to do the right thing. In my own state, a governor has to promote civil servants 2 days to election. And for 8 years, we were in power, he never promoted any person. So all of them are running helter-skelter because they know the power has been restored to the people. So I am very happy with the improvement in the electoral process, but let people's will be allowed. Don't fight. Don't go and use gun. Don't disrupt the system. Allow peaceful election. It is about leadership. It's about people that will make the country to be a better country for ourselves, for our children, for our children's children. And this is the time for us to start. And I want every Nigerian to participate in the electoral. Don't stay in home. Don't stay at home. Don't watch television. Don't play football. Come out and be able to choose those that can govern you. That is a responsibility. It's a civic one we must fulfill.
Absolutely. We have to continue to encourage people to come out and vote, and then vote for the candidate of your choice without any pressure. Vote for the person you really want to see in power. And, we'll continue to monitor and see what some of these alliances will birth, the impact of some of these alliances we're now seeing in states, what it would do to shift the electoral map. We also have our eyes on the voter turnout for the gubernatorial election. TVC News will be live across, all the 28 states that will be participating in the gubernatorial election, and other states where House of Assembly elections will also be holding, but no gubernatorial elections. Thank you so much for watching. Let me thank my guest, lawyer, Mr. Ola-Daniels. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Also, analyst Gbenga Olorunpomi, thank you so much for joining us. And lawyer and former second national vice president at the NBA, Mr. Ubani, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.